Hello, my name is Amy Kenyon, and this is my presentation about opioids. I want to say, excuse my voice, I lost it about a week ago, and it still hasn't fully came back, so bear with me. In this presentation, I will be discussing the drug class of opioids. I will talk about the history of opioids, what opioids are, and what they are used for. And I will discuss the potential of abuse that using opioids can cause. What is an opioid? Opioids are drugs that act on the nervous system to give us relief from pain. It can come in several different formats, including tablets and capsules and liquids, both injectable and ingestible. In addition to relieving pain, opioids often introduce euphoria with the release of endorphins, along with reducing anxiety. It can also produce apathy and lethargy. Some of the common opioids include opium, morphine, heroin, methadone, codeine, hydrocodone, and oxycodone. Opioids have been part of medicine for literally thousands of years. The earliest reference date back to 3400 BC. In the 1800s, morphine was widely introduced for the treatment of pain anxiety and a variety of respiratory issues. Interestingly, heroin was synthesized in 1998 as a non-addictive substitute for morphine, which obviously proved incorrect. The government has tried to protect the people from opioid abuse since the first laws banning the smoking of opium in 1909. This is widely considered as the official start of war on drugs in the United States. In an attempt to reduce the challenges of addiction, oxycodone was developed in 1916 in a failed attempt to produce an opioid with less physical dependence issues. The challenges of opioids created many new legislative efforts, including the 1924 Heroin Act and legislation giving the FDA the power to oversee food and drug safety in 1938. In 1950, Percodon, which is a mixture of oxycodone and aspirin, was approved, and in the 1960s, oxycodone abuse grew rapidly. So much so that in 1973, President Nixon initiated the official war on drugs. In the 1990s, pain management, especially for chronic conditions, resulted in a significant increase in opioid use. The development of time-released opioids in the early 2000s exacerbated the abuse issues. Chronic opioid abuse has risen to such a level that in 2016, the Centers for Disease Control issued new rules for the prescribing of opioids and changing the requirements for mandatory pain assessment, which had led to dangerous pain control practices. While the potential for opioid abuse is very high, opioids have many beneficial uses. These include the obvious treatment of pain, but also the less obvious treatments of coughs and diarrhea. Since opioids release large amounts of dopamine, when used, which can create a euphoric state or high, it is the dopamine release that can create the addiction, as the brain and body seek to replace the experience. Amazingly, 20 to 30% of Americans suffer from chronic pain, and most of these people are treated with opioids for pain relief. Using opioids on such chronic conditions leads to long-term opioid exposures, often resulting in addiction. Long-term opioid abuse also has significant side effects, including increasing tolerance to the effect of the opioids, increased pain sensitivity, and as discussed previously, drug dependence. Opioids have become a concern because of overdoses and subsequent deaths. Symptoms of an overdose includes respiratory depression, which slows down the breathing rate, coma, and constriction of the pupils. Many surveys have shown that legal opioid users are significantly more likely to become addicted. The scale of this issue is huge, as in 2014, for 2,245,000,000 prescriptions of opioids were written. Excuse me. Once opioids are stopped in a person with an addiction, withdrawal symptoms soon start, including cramps, chills, sweating, nausea, tremors, irritability, and panic feelings. Opioids are not just a national issue. In 2016, there were 50 opioid-related overdose deaths in Wyoming alone. That correlates to a rate of 8.7 deaths per 100,000 people, which was less than the natural average of 13.3 deaths per 100,000 people in 2015. Unfortunately, in 2018, Wyoming is averaging the same overdose death rate as the rest of the nation. Opioid abuse is a growing problem in Wyoming. Unbelievably, Wyoming prescribed over 383,000 opioid prescriptions in 2015 alone. There are many misconceptions about opioids. One of the most common ones is that opioids are the most effective drugs for chronic pain, when in actuality, the opposite is actually true, as opioids can increase pain sensitivity over time. Another common misconception is that the physicians are the cause of the opioid epidemic. This is not true, as they were not aware of how addictive some opioids are and were often criticized if they withheld opioids from patients with any level of pain. Another common misconception is that only addicts can become addicted to opioids, when in reality, anyone can become addicted to opioids. There is a growing number of partnerships between public and private entities doing research both into pain control using opioids and other non opioid therapies. These public and private partnerships allow private corporations to help underwrite public health issues. Recent research has shown that opioid abuse is on the rise as it is used for non-therapeutic uses, resulting in dramatic increases in prescription opioid abuse. As the world's largest consumer, the United States leads with these challenges, but other countries are starting to experience the same issues as the number of prescriptions have nearly tripled to 219 million over the last 20 years. As a result of the epidemic abuse of opioids, there are significantly increased opioid-related emergency department visits, opioid treatment admissions, and opioid overdoses resulting in fatalities. In 2014, 10.3 million Americans were using opioids in non-medically approved ways. This increasingly large problem grew rapidly as it was initially underreported, undertreated, and grossly underestimated. As we discussed, chronic pain is a serious and often untreated public health problem. Over 19% of adults have chronic pain, and 34% of those reported as recurrent pain. Of those patients with pain, 63% of them have spoken with their doctor, but only one-third of those obtain complete relief. Over 21% of the patients with chronic pain reported no relief at all. Additionally, the population overall has had an increased rate of arthritis, cancer, and other conditions that contribute to pain, leaving the public health officials to ponder what could be done to simultaneously prevent opioid abuse and effectively treat pain. Some of the tactics being used to reduce the opioid abuse rates include prescription drug monitoring programs and allowing pharmacists and prescribers to access patient prescription histories, both of which help curb opioid prescription diversion. Insurance companies are increasing surveillance of their patients' medication intake. There is an across the board effort to increase knowledge of effective pain management techniques and to correctly diagnose the root cause of the pain, thereby stopping overprescription and undertreatment. In conclusion, we have seen that opioids and narcotics originally derived from the poppy plant but also can be synthesized chemically. It is used to treat moderate to severe pain as well as chronic pain. Opioid use can be linked to addiction, starting out often as simply as a prescription to relieve pain. Opioid use and abuse is on the rise with more and more deaths every year. Previous prescription patterns led to an overprescription, but recently more restrictions are starting to lower prescription rates. Much more work has to be done with pain management using alternatives to opioids. Thank you for watching my presentation.